Um, what's this?
You seem on mute, Katie. I think you're talking.
I'm sorry about that. Frank Fish, Liz Succi, Brian Goddard are all in the waiting room. Are you ready for me to let them in? Or do you want to wait a couple minutes for Mary?
Oh, why don't we let him in and then we'll wait another minute to start. Mary should be
Oh,
joining
she
us.
just entered. Yep, she just entered the waiting room.
Yeah, and we have some administrative stuff to go through anyway, so.
Mm-hmm.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hi, John.
So, since it is 5:31, and I see we have most of our people here, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Do a roll call. We have a full committee here. We have Lisa Cooper, Kelly Bloom, Mary Peniston, David Westmoreland, and myself. And then, is there any public participation? None? No one's out there? Okay, we'll
I don't think so.
end public participation and we'll move to administration. And do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the May 14th, 2024 regular meeting? So moved.
I'll second.
So, okay, moved by David, seconded by, I think, Kelly. Does anyone have any changes, additions, deletions? None? Seeing none, I'll say I call a vote. All in favor? Aye. Carries unanimously. We'll go over to item B in administration financials. Do I have a motion to approve the Norwalk Redevelopment Agency Statement of Revenues and Expenditures for Operating Fund 100 for year to date, April 30th, 2024? See a motion? I'll make the motion. And I'll turn it over to Eugenia.
Thanks, John. For year-to-date April 2024, the operating fund 100 had actual revenues of $1,376,000 versus budgeted revenues of $1,259,000 for a favorable variance of $117,000. Total actual expenditures of $1,583,000 versus budgeted expenditures of $1,584,000 resulted in a favorable variance of about $1,000. The actual operating deficit of $206,000 versus the budgeted operating deficit of $324,000 resulted in a favorable variance of $118,000.
Any questions, comments, observations? No? I'll call for a vote. All in favor of approving the statement of revenues and expenditures? Unanimous? All committee members? Thank you, Eugenia.
You're welcome, John.
And then we'll move on to business, item 5, with item A, U.S. Department of Transportation Reconnecting Communities Grant. And we have a motion to authorize the Executive Director of Norwalk Redevelopment Agency to execute any and all documents related to U.S. Department of Transportation Reconnecting Communities Grant. I see a motion. No one's making motions. David, I'll second it. And I'll turn it over to Brian.
Yeah, well, thank you. So yeah, this grant we're really excited about. This is a really competitive program through the US DOT, Reconnecting Communities. I believe this is actually our second or third year even going for this grant, but we're finally successful. The intent of the program is to support communities addressing the impacts of large infrastructure investments that may have fragmented the community in the past. In our case, obviously, Interstate 95 and the impacts that had on the South Norwalk neighborhood. So what this grant proposes to do is provide planning and design dollars to take a look at the corridor, sort of from, basically the Webster Street lot, Washington Street, all the way up to West Ave, through West Ave up into the Wall West neighborhood, trying to figure out a way to better connect the two neighborhoods through the streetscapes, bike ped integration, additional transit and the like. We'll be doing a number of community outreach events as a result of this. The total grant amount is set. Well, the total project amount is $750,000. $600,000 of that is federal share, and $150,000 of that is local share coming from city capital funds. You may have recalled we actually had a press event with Senator Blumenthal a couple months back in the mayor, and this is what this grant is. But we've just recently received the grant agreement. So basically, what I would need is authorization to execute that, and then subsequent contracting documents.
Any questions? We're all familiar with this. Seeing no questions, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor? Unanimous. That carries that item. We'll move to item B, design review. Item I, 25 and 31-35 through 35 South Main Street. The applicant's team's revised architectural design and memo. Turn it over to Liz. And Liz, we'll ask if you could just present the changes you made since our last conversations.
Sure, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. For the record, Liz Suchy, I'm partner at Carmody, Torrance, Sandak, and Hennessy. We appeared before you probably 6 weeks ago or so. Since that time, the Planning and Zoning Commission on May 15th approved the project. However, it approved it with a variety of conditions, and some of which were conditions that this commission spoke about and your peer review consultant had suggested. Among them were to commemorate the history of 25 and 3135 South Main, try to salvage or reuse historic features of the structure, such as the frieze at 3135, and most importantly, to revise the plan to show a single curb cut with a two-way entrance at the northern portion of the building. So therefore, the southern entrance would be eliminated, and we would no longer have a loop system with vehicles coming into the north, exiting from the south. It would be a wider driveway on the north side of the building, and then that southern portion of the building where that other driveway was proposed, that would be eliminated. There's a wall mural was suggested, and then also additional comments from your peer review consultant, BFJ, were also incorporated as conditions of approval. At this point, if you would, I would like Seelan Pother of Byfield Architecture to show you the revised plan. That's probably the best way to let you know what's been changed. And we hope that this is going to be satisfactory to you now that the plan has been changed to, frankly, address many of the concerns and recommendations that you had made. Seelan?
Thanks, Les. Good evening, everyone. Les, you can hear me right?
Yep.
Great. My name is Seelan Pother. I'm a principal at Byfield Architecture. Is Derek on yet? I think he was getting back to the office. I don't see him on. If not, that's our civil engineer. If not, I'll just take any questions on circulation from now until he jumps on. I'll start sharing my screen. All right, so I think the best way to organize this is just quickly go back to these comments. We attached this in our return documentation to you. So let's go to one point to just make sure we get everything on the record, but point by point, there's not many of them. So the big one was the elimination of the southern garage opening, currently proposes an exit and its curb cut. So with that, we used to have a loop going around and coming out in this portion of the building at this recess. Here you see the Sona Residence Inn in this area, and then an existing building on the right-hand side here. So this is an overall site plan, and what we've done is we've consolidated both the entrance and exit into this one area here. We've eliminated the south side, so the north side, eliminated this. We've extended the ground floor amenities to make more architecture out of that, and I'll get into that on the elevations. But the functioning now is that you'd come in, you'd mostly be dropped off, right? That's the nature of this. Is a fully valet parking. But if you needed to, you would make a T-turn and back out. So that's the big change here. I mean, it's simplistic in the way we're describing and showing it here, but there's a lot of effort that went into doing that. And then the next question was ornamental trees, and it had to do with tree grates, and when we said that we will comply with the Norwalk City standards. They eliminate the fiber cement panels from the front facade. So I'll take a few of these in one comment. So eliminate the fiber cement panels. Sorry, 1 second, guys. So eliminate the fiber cement panels, break up the horizontal massing of the building, and emphasize pedestrian access points. So we didn't eliminate the fiber cement panels because we made the point, I think BFJ acknowledged this, that we intentionally wanted this portion of the building to be slightly different. A more modern approach to the architecture as it abutted the brick facade here. There's a brick facade right up against here with the existing hotel. So if this brick kept going, it would just be an amalgamation of brick. So we thought that this thin strip helped resolve that. We did, in another point, add these punched windows at the second level to change the eye line or the line across the front of the building. That was a comment from BFJ, so we acknowledged that and added it in this area. Hopefully kill two birds with one stone there. And then the question about the various facades, we answered by saying in a previous presentation that these facades have 4 different elevations, 1, 2, 3, and this one's given 4. So we think we've met that intent. A big change here was this, 4 elevations anyway, was that when you make this wider to 2-way, the proportions of the original architecture were thrown off. So we changed this to look like it's a steel frame holding up this brick facade. And that gives us opportunity to mimic the type of architecture we have behind with the steel frame on the train track side. And it also creates an opportunity for signage. So that was the resolution for dealing with the 2-way in and out that changed the proportion of this architecture. And you see here that this is, if we get it right, it looks something like this frame right here. And that's new. So I'll just go back to the list and just tick them off one by one based on that, on all those comments I just made. There were the fiber cement panels, the horizontal massing of the building, the pedestrian access points. Sorry, I didn't touch on that. Got this massive canopy with a big revolving door in the middle here that hopefully says hotel, like a traditional hotel would normally be designed with a large revolving door. Make the windows at the second floor punched. I described that in the modern facade. And then the last few were locate and conceal trash receptacles. They are. Show clear signage. That'll be a future application, but we showed you where the signage band could go above that entrance, as it's designed on the residence end right now. We did that. To clarify the fire egress, we closed that because we had spoken to the Norwalk Fire Department and determined the total building coverage. We determined it does comply. So I think we've addressed all the comments. We'll take any questions.
Any questions? David, Mary?
Ms. Suchi made a comment that the respect of the commemorating the history was there. I didn't see that addressed anywhere.
The thought there was that we could, as per the original application, we could take elements of the existing building that we think are valuable, that might be limited to the cornices or the tin ceiling inside one of the buildings, and use them in the lobby interior in the lobby of the hotel, or show them or display them in the lobby of the hotel.
There was also a suggestion by the Planning and Zoning Commission in its conditions that perhaps there be some sort of photographic array to depict the buildings that were there, and other ideas that came up were perhaps the frieze at 3135 South Main, maybe component parts of that frieze, either the number, the year, or the name, could also, if they could be saved, somehow incorporated in, perhaps installed on the inside of the lobby or elsewhere in the building. So those could be reused. That's what was the idea and the type of condition imposed by the zoning commission, planning and zoning commission.
Yeah, there's very little, there's nothing from the two buildings out there that on the exterior facade that we can put on our exterior facade. That's virtually impossible. So the lobby, the interiors inside the lobbies, we could make those sort of acknowledgements.
Thank you.
So there's not really, the plan is perhaps if we can save this, or perhaps we can do that, but there's not any real commitment to do anything for mitigation for the loss of the two buildings.
As it relates to the exterior facade and saving of that, that's correct. We, Tom Rich had a separate and independent person look at the condition of both those facades and what is what's in from a historical point of view. And the answer was not much. I mean, they were on the building, and I forget the number, the building further to the left, there was some detailing on that facade that was very historically attractive, and we just physically would, if we took it apart, it would fall apart. The concrete was falling, so we couldn't take it apart.
So
that was in the report, I believe.
Both those buildings are listed as contributing resources to the National Register District. Am I not correct?
Correct.
And
Part of a district, historic
Mm-hmm.
district, yes.
You hired some guy to basically say they're not historically valuable, but the National Park Service and the National Register does recognize them as historically significant because they're contributing resources to the historic district.
Well, I wouldn't say it was just some guy. He is an architectural historian himself with more than 40 years of experience, both in Connecticut and New York. And his report was rather detailed as to the condition of those facades, the history of the structure, the architectural detailing that either exists or doesn't, and what efforts would likely need to be undertaken, if any could be undertaken at all, would end up resulting in not preservation of those structures, but completely new structures given the condition of the buildings and the facades. So he presented a report to this commission last year in connection with 3135 South Main. And he also has done a similar report for 25 South Main, coming to largely the same conclusion due to the age, the history, and the age of the structures and their condition.
My issue with his
Michael
report,
Devonshire is a recognized architectural historian.
my issue with his report is that it did not cover the cultural history, at least of 3135 at all. And, you know, from the facade, you can repair anything. There are plenty of examples in New York of buildings, facades that have been incorporated in with new structures behind them. I mean, I don't have any, you know, this is the design you're showing is perfectly fine. I don't have any issues with it. It's a beautiful building. My issue is with the lack of commitment to a strong commitment to mitigation regarding the loss of those two buildings that are listed on the National Register and are part of our historic district, regardless of what your historian says.
If it's any, I don't know if consolation is the correct word, but if it provides you with any degree of comfort, the State Historic Preservation Office is now involved, and we have believe there's a meeting with them or hearing with them on Friday, and additional hearings that may take place in July or August. So this discussion about the viability of those structures or salvaging or taking any portions of the facades or the interior and incorporating them into our building, I think we're trying to do that. And I think those freezes on 3135 are probably the best features that, if they can even be removed from the structure and saved, would be incorporated into the building. And that's probably the best we can do. If you'll recall from last year, the idea was to provide a photographic array inside the hotel, which was going to be expanded to depict the 3135 Udelman building that was going to be demolished. And that seemed to be an acceptable resolution to the very concerns you're raising tonight. And that's what we would propose to do again. And that's what the Planning and Zoning Commission has indicated as a condition of approval, that we do our best to salvage, reuse, and otherwise incorporate historic features to the best, if it's feasible.
And just to clarify, when we left the 3135 last year, the idea was that you were going to look at what could be salvaged and come back to the board to basically present what that would be. So I don't think it was just limited to the photography, just to be clear.
Well, and that was also, I mean, I wasn't happy with that. I mean, we accepted it, but we were talking about one building, not two buildings, not basically the rest of that block. And now we've added another building to it. And it's just a continual wave.
Okay. Any other? Mary, Kelly, any other questions?
I just had a question. Even if something couldn't be salvaged, I'm just wondering, could anything be mimicked or reproduced so that at least one would have the feel? I mean, I'm looking at some of the pictures of the front of those buildings, and I mean, I'm not an architect, etc., but I think the idea of, even if it couldn't be salvaged, it would seem there might be a way to reproduce some of the interesting features even inside. I don't know. David, you know more about architecture than I do, but I'm just trying to think about, even if it wasn't salvageable, there might be some way to reproduce some of those effects so that at least there's some recognition and continuation of that particular history.
Well, typically, I mean, you don't want to recreate something that wasn't there. You want to preserve what was actually there. And if you can't, I think there's plenty of reference in the current design in terms of that the architecture blends with the historic nature of the rest of the buildings in the area. I wouldn't really want to do a reproduction of what was there because it's a reproduction. Ideally, you'd incorporate the facades into that. I mean, that's obviously far from what this plan is. Short of that, what can you save and where can you put it? But it's tough because I don't know. So go ahead.
So I agree, Dave. I mean, the national parks recommendations for historic buildings, you recreate, you discourage from recreating buildings, and new architecture should look different from historic buildings if they're near them. That's what they normally ask for. But I'll just bring this up. And I apologize if I'm sounding vague about my response, David, but I'm not being intentionally vague, because the idea was, if there's anything salvageable and anything that we felt was of value, we would use it in the inside, and we haven't designed the inside yet. So candidates for that would be maybe that, if we can pull it off. Obviously pictures, photographs, like Liz said. But then what I referenced was maybe we could get this off. We were talking about that when we did the original application, but we realized we couldn't. It was just going to fall apart if we try to get this portion of the building off. And then maybe that. But there might be gestures that we could create if we design them when we design the inside. So that's what I was referring to. And the only candidates I could see, unless you see something different, that. and that. Because like I said, we already looked at maybe pulling that off and realized when we went inside and we looked at the structure behind it, the condition of the brick, it's not good. It
What
will
about the-
come apart as you pull it.
What about the cornices on the building? I guess that's what you call it, over the window.
This one, right?
No, the actual window, that plus the windows themselves, they have a frame. They have some articulated design. No, not
Well,
that.
this is not original.
The other building, the other
Oh,
building.
this one, these guys here.
Yes,
Yep.
the top, the treatment on the top. I mean, it's nothing spectacular, but it does,
You,
have
I
some.
mean, literally these headers, right? Is that what you
Yes,
mean?
matters, yeah.
Yeah, maybe. Again, I wouldn't want to force it into this elevation, but maybe there's, just for example, we have a mezzanine condition in the inside of the building. Yeah, and then maybe you have these framed windows. But again, I'm not trying to sound intentionally vague, but we want to design that interior space and also make sure that that's designed well and not forced or contrived. So we'll get there.
To quote David somewhat, I'm comfortable with this new design and redesign and this single entrance and egress location. And I'm satisfied with the attempt to put some photographs inside the building to show the historic significance. Yeah, I find it all acceptable, and I'm willing to accept this redesign and approve it. I don't know, David, can you approve this as well?
I don't think so because, I don't know what's being committed to in terms of mitigation still. I mean, I would almost rather wait until after the hearings with the state are done.
Okay. Well, Mary, would you prefer to wait? I'd prefer to approve it. There's zoning has put on some requirements and suggestions that they still have to meet those. And I think the building, as far as the design at this point, is acceptable. So I'm ready to make a motion to approve the current design. So
John, the conditions that P and Z put on make their approval conditional, that those have to be met?
I believe so.
Yes. And one of them is approved by this commission as well.
I'm sorry, could you just give one other example of what are their conditions?
I don't have them specifically in front of me. I'm sure Liz, you might have them.
Let me just say where I'm trying to go with this. I'm trying to figure out a way that I respect that John is looking for a way to keep the process moving. I understand David's position that right now it's like if we can. So I'm just trying to think about, is there some way that we can make it? I was trying to think if there's some way about we're fine as long as but it's still, I guess, have to come back. So I'm wondering how P and Z has put conditions on and how they know they're met, if there's some way that we could mimic the way that P and Z was doing it.
Well, what we did the last time, as I mentioned, was that we approved it with a condition that they were going to quantify what could be done and what that would look like, and then come back to this board. And that was the same for the 3135, just as background.
I don't have the P and Z.
I'm sorry for coming on, for closing off on video and audio, but I have the P&Z approval in front of me. And if you'd like, I can read the whole thing to you, or I could read the pertinent conditions, and hopefully that will help you understand where they were coming from and what obligations have been imposed upon the applicant. So aside from standards such as any changes to the approved plans need to go to the staff for review, and significant changes would be reviewed by the commission. One condition is the applicant shall install a wall mural on the north facade of the proposed structure, subject to the approval of the Arts Commission, the redevelopment agency. That's condition number 3. Number 4, the applicant shall include street trees along the frontage in coordination with P&Z and Transportation Mobility and Parking staff, compliant with the American with Disabilities Act. Solar panels have to be installed. Utilities need to be buried. And let me just go through the others. WPCA and DPW approvals and conditions are applicable. Then there are a variety of traffic and parking requirements, such as installation of rectangular rapid flashing beacons on South Main and Haviland, a coordinated brick paver system. Let me see what else. Then condition number 12 is that redevelopment agency approval is required prior to the issuance of a zoning permit, including the applicant working with RDA to create a plan commemorating the heritage of the existing historic buildings at 25 and 31-35 South Main Street by creating informational display panels, displaying photographs or architectural drawings, and determining the feasibility of salvaging and reusing or displaying somewhere in the new development the historic features of the existing buildings, such as the stone frieze elements at 31-35 South Main Street. Come back with a revised plan of a single curb cut with a two-way entrance, and then surety bond and things of that nature. And then the applicant must implement the summary of recommendations identified in the design review report by your design review consultant, BFJ, dated 4/3/2024, prior to the issuance of a zoning permit. And that included elimination of the southern garage, ornamental metal tree planting grades, elimination of fiber cement panels, breakup of the horizontal massing of the building, perhaps with a step back concrete band or brick masonry reveal along one or more upper story, emphasize pedestrian access point, make windows at the second level punched and provide a solid base on the ground floor level, conceal trash receptacles, show clear signage at street level and for parking garage.
That gets it for me. So I just have a quick question. What's the purpose of the meeting with the State Historical Society on Friday? Is there any way?
A private citizen has, I believe, requested that the state review the proposal for this site, the demolition of the structures. Similar to the process that was undertaken last year.
Well, I have a feeling they're going to be concerned that an additional building has been added to be demolished.
All right.
I was just wondering if any recommendations would come out of that meeting that we could make that I don't know how to tie it in, because I understand John's wanting to move it forward, but I also agree with David that it's not like to the best of our ability. I think redevelopment was more specific about plans that could be clearly executed. So I'm still a little bit on the fence about, I'd like there to be a commitment. And David, I just wanted to ask if what redevelopment was asking for was specific enough, or you want something more specific?
Sorry. So I'm just looking for specificity, and I'm also looking to hear the results of the state hearing on this as well. I don't know really how to get there.
Brian, do you have any suggestions?
My only suggestion would be if the board was comfortable doing something similar to what we did last time, where you approve it and then just reinforce the condition of P&Z as related to the RDA imposition, and then the applicant commits to, before issuance, advancing it forward, they come back to this board to show us the specifics and the results of the state meeting, whether that's at the next meeting, but I think that could help keep things moving. while at the same time maybe satisfying some of these items.
That can work. Um,
David, does that work for you?
Maybe.
We'll take a maybe.
David, if we approve the design as submitted, subject to zoning, planning and zoning conditions, and they come back to us after the Friday meeting, I think that's moving this along and getting the approvals that are needed to keep it moving. And it's,
Well, with what Brian said specifically, the results of the hearing, as well as the specific plans around mitigation, back to this commission. Although I don't know what we have in terms of any recourse if they come back and say, well, nothing is feasible. You know, what then, after we've already approved it?
Well, I would assume that wouldn't relieve the condition of P and Z then. That still needs to be satisfied to this board's satisfaction.
thank you.
Which means what?
I think you basically, we approve the design as is, and then you'd have to have a subsequent approval of the specific plan regarding the historic preservation.
And if we don't approve it, what happens?
We'd have to work that into the language which you all prefer.
And can P and Z override any condition we put on it?
I don't believe so. I mean, I think they were pretty clear in terms of their zoning permit won't be issued unless they satisfy our conditions.
Okay.
I think, and this is, we reached out multiple times in between our last meeting and this meeting to try to have this conversation and reconcile specific. I know a lot of these items have been addressed, but I knew this was a big one. And I think just being able to work together to develop a specific plan. I guess my question is while I have you here, is how long would it take to develop a specific plan for what would occur from a historic preservation perspective? That's the applicant.
I'm going to have to defer an answer to that from Seelan. I can't answer how long it will take or what's being contemplated. Maybe Seelan, do you have any idea of what timeline is for designing the interior, or what it would take to further evaluate what exists on whether the above the windows or the friezes and how that could be incorporated? I don't know.
Yeah, so if we all can agree to that part about the photography and the recording of the building that way on the inside, and that we're gonna do, and won't make it, work into the interior design. With regards to salvaging parts of the existing buildings, that's going to be a contractor going out there to look at demolition of the building and telling us, we can keep this, we can't keep that. So those two are dependent, like the actual physical contractor going out and taking a look at what it would take to demolish and or preserve parts of the building.
Well,
so I'm not sure what that timeline is, Brian. I think we'd have to speak to Tom, Rich, and Alan and figure out that timeline.
I mean, beyond pictures of the previous buildings, I would like interpretation that covers as context the Jewish immigration into Norwalk at the turn of the 20th century and the old Edelman building and the part he played in the city. That should be memorialized.
I think that was something that last year was contemplated, that it wasn't just going to be a photo with no context, but some sort of verbiage, or as you see in other locales, when you have a photo, just showing a photo doesn't help anyone or doesn't give anyone an idea of why it's there. I think the idea was to showcase the structure in a photo and give some sort of narrative underneath it, so that the reason why it's there and the reason why it's come to be in the new structure would be evident. I think that was what was contemplated last year as well.
Yeah, and I'm specifically looking for that again.
Mm-hmm. That's not an issue whatsoever. Otherwise, they're just photos that don't.
Meaning.
People will look at them and have no idea why they're there and not care. I think
Right.
the idea was to have some sort of narrative underneath it to give an idea of what existed prior to the structure.
Right.
Okay, so then can we make a motion to approve the design, subject to the conditions of P and Z, and if you could put into words again the pictures inside, more making it more of a memorial. Will that work?
Well, the condition that is specific, that two things, the applicant will come back with the results of the state hearing, and then also will come back with a specific plan that includes the potential reuse of elements off of the existing buildings and how they would be used, along with the interpretation and memorialization of the previous buildings as we discussed in this meeting.
Okay,
And that's all predicated
So-
upon,
so-
at least for the features on the exterior of the two buildings, that they can be saved or reused, that it's feasible to do so. And I would imagine you'd want that as part of any discussion or further correspondence or information we provide to a future date.
That's what I was going to say, Liz, also. Thanks.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, this is Frank Fish. Would you like any additional comments from us? I do have two minor ones that you might want to consider.
all right. Please.
Yeah, they're just in our memo previously, and you've gone over, actually, Sealand's gone over our memo and responses to it. And by the way, I think he's covered a lot of them where they have responded. Of course, the biggest one is the one entrance in and out. But that creates an opportunity, we thought, for the southern part of this building, where they've really put in 3 glass panels. We did make a former comment, and that is that the historic buildings that are being replaced, the windows do not go to the ground. There's a base to the windows. And I don't know, Sealand, if you can bring those up just for the commission to see. The base of those, you can see the buildings now. The base is a 2 or 3 foot high base to the windows. And it seemed to us there's an opportunity there on the new buildings to recognize that sort of base. And we didn't hear a clear sort of response to that point. And the other minor point we had was that historic buildings, the doorways are generally recessed back, very, very little, but it makes it a little bit of a difference. And we noted that the entrance doorway here, it does overlap just a little bit with the sidewalk. And we think that it could be recessed back slightly. That's a more minor one, but we don't see why that couldn't happen. We did look at it inside and out. You can see where it swings out there a little bit over the sidewalk. It seems that that's something that it's a small gesture, but it is one where all of the buildings that are being torn down, they have recessed doorways. So it's those two elements that I thought, while they've responded to a lot of our comments, these are two that we thought are fairly I don't want to say easy, but they're things that could be done, it seems, without a great, terrific effort, but they would mimic those two elements of the historic buildings that, are being torn down. So I just wanted to add those two items. P&Z's already recognized them. Liz has cited them, but I did want to say that because we just have not seen a response to those two things, which we thought are very feasible for the building. So those are the two items.
So I can answer those now, Frank.
Yeah,
if we push this, can we leave the revolving door and push this entire revolving door back? That would do it, you think?
yeah, I think so. I think if you got it back
Alright.
a little bit, you'd be reflecting
So we'll do that.
the past design. And then the other one is
We'll
just
do that.
the base of the windows. They seem to come right almost, you know, if you could mimic the historic buildings.
Well, I was gonna put these out. We did this at the original hotel. They're actually bluestone tops. Pretty dirty in that picture, but they're stone tops.
Right.
So would that be? That's sort of what we're drawing right now. You think it needs to be more than that?
Well, if you mimic, and by the way, I don't want to just say, you know, repeat what the older buildings were. However, if you added a little bit more of an elevation, another foot, I think you would be very, it would then reflect those buildings a little bit more. And
Okay.
so those are the two things I just wanted to say.
So we'll
from
do
the
both.
design. Yeah, from a
Okay.
So
design.
yeah, we can commit to both those. We will do both.
Okay,
And that's it, Mr. Chairman.
all right. So we're making progress. So I see a motion now to approve the design of the current, buildings, subject to the conditions of the zoning, and in addition, the changes we just discussed. Am I right that those conditions are already in the P and Zs?
No, I think we need to add, I think a couple things. I got David's thing, and we could pull, if everyone's comfortable with David's formal resolution, we could pull the exact language from the minutes. But I think the overall gist was approve the applicant's design pending satisfaction of the Planning and Zoning Commission. That the applicant will come back subsequent with the results of their meeting with the State Historic Preservation Office, and that they will provide a specific plan detailing the potential application of these items that were just discussed and however else they want to achieve the historic preservation and reflect that, and also memorializing the cultural history, as David mentioned, as part of that plan. Did I get what you were saying, David?
Yes, that sounds better than what I said. So good.
That's great. I can go with that as well. You care to make an official motion, Brian?
Yeah, I don't think I can, but I think I put words in David's mouth there, so I think it might be.
If David's okay, I can make the motion as worded by Brian.
Okay,
I'll second it.
I approve it. All in favor? Okay. All approved, subject to Brian's wording.
Okay, we'll get that down.
And could I just say, in terms of the photography, I didn't want to make it a condition or anything, but I have seen very creative treatment of photography, including using an entire wall of a floor to like reproduce a scene of an area. I mean, I'm not an architect, I'm not a design, but it would be interesting to see what could be done with photography in not just in small frames, but if there's some interesting treatment to really capture the feel, that would be lovely. But as I say, I'm not an architect, I'm not a design person, but I've been in buildings where they have captured the history in a way where it is literally part of an inside wall.
Okay,
Thank you. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for your time tonight.
And
Thank you very much.
we covered everything. We made a motion to approve subject. So, anything else to discuss on this subject? No. New business? None. Old business? I don't see any.
Yes. Yeah, I just have, Brian, can you give us an update on POCO? I think you said mid-June?
Mid-June, here we are. We're in mid-June. Yeah. So it's still moving on the same path. Nothing's really changed substantively, but they are still working on the closing documents. So I'm gonna actually have a call with them. I think it's actually tomorrow in terms of where they're at with the closing, and I can send them an email from there if that'd be satisfactory. I can say that what we've been doing internally is working out the infrastructure budget with them. So we just received another updated infrastructure budget just yesterday, or actually earlier this week. And we were also at an on-site meeting with the fire marshal to address some of the safety issues. So we're kind of working out the final kinks on the city side, in addition to preparing a loan agreement that would result from some of the city capital contributions that we have. So we're kind of finalizing the docs on our end, and what I could do is I'll reach out to Todd and get another specific date in terms of where we're at, but they are moving along in the same path, and there isn't any substantive delay that I'm aware of right now.
I mean, it'd be great to know when they're going to start construction.
Yeah, they said shortly after closing, which I know we talked about mid-June. So let me find out a date, and I'll send out an update email tomorrow with all the comprehensive.
I'm laughing because I've been off the council for maybe 4 years now. I was on the council for 8. And the day I came on the council, we were asking the same question.
Yeah.
When are we going to finish this building?
Yeah,
I can,
in 6 months, we're going to start for sure.
I can say one thing I can say just in terms of the project. I mean, the financing structure, this is one of the larger deals that the state of Connecticut has ever financed with the tax credits. So it's resulted in a lot of complexity and reviews on the state's end of things. So I do know that the applicant, the developer is pushing on it. I think it's just, there's just a lot of the I's to dot and T's to cross. So I'll try to get I'll provide you what I have in terms of updates tomorrow.
Great. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
no problem.
Thanks for working this out tonight. We're moving forward. And Eugenia, I won't be around next week if you need checks signed. So,
Yeah, I'm gonna contact you tomorrow. Maybe I need for you to sign something on Thursday perhaps, but I'll keep you posted.
okay. that's
Would that
fine.
be okay?
Thursday's okay.
Okay, sounds good. Great. Thank
Uh,
you.
Thank you. Have a nice weekend, and see you next month, if not sooner.
Did we get
Take
a
care.
motion to adjourn? Sorry, I just don't know if we
Uh,
grab one.
Officially?
No. No, not
Everybody's
yet.
hands went up.
Yeah,
It's carried unanimously.
very good.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Take care.
Thanks, Brian.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.